Hello there, my sleep fellows. Tonight, I invite you to rest your thoughts. Take a deep breath and let your mind slip into the comforting glow of the wizarding world, a place of soft lamplight, warm stone corridors, and whispered secrets that only appear when you're still enough to notice. Our tale tonight is a gentle one. A story not of grand battles or hurried spells, but of mystery that hums quietly beneath the everyday magic we've come to love. It begins with a forgotten legend of a hidden railway station. Not the famed platform 9 3/4, but something beyond. A platform that only reveals itself once to those who aren't looking for it. So snuggle in. Let the world around you fade as we return once more to the soft hush of Hogwarts halls. The rhythm of the Hogwarts express wheels echoing across the Scottish countryside, and the muffled laughter of students leaning into windows with wonder in their eyes. Before we step onto the path of this secret, if you find yourself smiling or sinking deeper into your pillow as the story unfolds, I gently invite you to like this cozy tale and subscribe for more magical journeys. Let this be your resting place each night, where stories bloom like moonflowers in the dark. Now, our story begins, as so many do, with a journey to Hogwarts. It is a sleepy golden morning in King's Cross Station. The platform is abuzz, yet there's a softness to the air. A fine mist curls along the tracks, clinging to the hems of cloaks and the toes of tiny dragon-hide boots. Owls hoot drowsily in wicker cages. Somewhere, a tabby cat yawns and stretches atop a student's suitcase. From between platforms 9 and 10, a flash of movement. A figure disappears smoothly through the barrier with practiced ease. On the other side, the scarlet engine of the Hogwarts Express waits like a warm guardian, steam billowing in gentle puffs, its brass fixtures polished and gleaming. Inside the train, the air is warm and comfortable, filled with the scent of chocolate frogs, cinnamon biscuits, and the familiar crackle of chatter. Students are settling into their compartments, pulling out books and sweets, sharing stories of summer mischief. Lanterns cast a gentle golden light, swaying slightly with the movement of the train. Outside the windows, London fades, replaced by lush greenery and low hills rolling beneath a lazy sun. There's something deeply soothing about the rhythm of the train. Click-clack, click-clack, as if it hums a lullaby all its own. Time seems to soften here. Hours stretch into something slow and tender, like honey sliding from a spoon, and somewhere among these students, tucked into a quiet corner compartment, a whisper of something long forgotten is about to stir once more, a whisper of a place that does not exist on maps, a station no one remembers, a destination only seen once, and so our gentle journey begins. In a compartment near the back of the train, the soft shuffle of pages and the rustle of cloaks echo faintly against the velvet-lined seats. Here, in this gentle cocoon of warmth and wonder, sat Harry Potter, now older, his lightning scar barely visible beneath a slightly tousled mop of dark hair. The war had long ended, but its lessons still lingered in the calm way he carried himself. Gone were the hurried whispers and curious stares. This was a new era, one that allowed him the quiet to enjoy simpler things. Like the soothing roll of the train beneath him, across from him sat Ron Weasley, slouched in his seat, half asleep and half listening to the low hum of the train wheels. His arms were crossed, and a faint smirk played on his lips as if dreaming of something amusing. His red hair, though a little tamer with age, still caught the light like flame. Even now he carried the air of someone always ready for an unexpected laugh. Yet he too had grown, wiser, a touch more thoughtful, especially on peaceful journeys like these. Next to him, sharing a packet of sugar quills, was Hermione Granger, ever the picture of composed curiosity. A well-worn book rested on her lap, her fingers tracing the edges of its pages, though her eyes kept drifting to the window. The way her brow furrowed gently suggested she was not reading for facts, but perhaps feeling the rhythm of the passing world, absorbing the quiet beauty of the moment. Her presence brought a warm, thoughtful energy to the compartment, as if nothing could truly go wrong with her nearby. The three of them weren't students anymore, nor quite professors either. This trip was different. It wasn't an official mission, nor a reunion with fanfare. It was something subtler, softer, a desire to feel once more the hush of adventure without danger, to simply ride the train that had carried their past and let it take them somewhere unexpected. As the train wound northward, their conversation ebbed and flowed like gentle waves. They spoke of small things, Ron's new hobby growing enchanted tomatoes, Hermione's efforts to improve house elf rights in retirement, and Harry's quiet fascination with old wizarding maps. There was laughter, comfortable silence, and the occasional affectionate eye roll from Hermione when Ron tried, once again, to guess the exact number of Bertie Bott's every flavor beans he could eat without finding a bad one. The golden light of the lantern above them flickered slightly, catching the three friends in a moment of perfect peace. Outside, the landscape was beginning to shift. The hills grew steeper, the trees older and denser. Yet, none of them noticed, for in this little space, with their hearts light and their stories shared, they were simply passengers on a train bound for something magical. Something none of them had planned for. Something not written in any timetable. Not yet. The steady rhythm of the Hogwarts Express felt almost like a lullaby as it hummed along the tracks, curving through sleepy hills and wide open meadows. Soft clouds drifted lazily through the sky, their reflections stretching across narrow streams that mirrored the world like forgotten memories. Inside the softly lit compartment, Harry, Ron, and Hermione sat in serene contentment. Time didn't seem to matter here, not in the gentle sway of the train, nor in the golden warmth that filtered through the windows. Hermione had dozed off, her book still open on her lap, and Ron's head tilted lazily against the window, the fog from his breath making faint patterns on the glass. Harry sat quietly between them, his gaze fixed outside, and then it happened. At first, it was barely noticeable. The train gave the slightest shudder, not jarring, but more like the shift of a dream. The landscape beyond the window began to blur, not in speed, but in texture. Trees no longer stood rooted in realism, but instead looked softly painted, as though sketched by hand in watercolor and smoothed by years of rain and memory. Harry blinked slowly, adjusting his glasses.
Hermione.
Ron stirred. Are we there yet? Hermione's eyes fluttered open, immediately alert. What is it? Harry's voice was gentle.
Something's wrong.
Look outside. They all peered through the window. The familiar world of the Hogwarts journey had changed. The usual countryside with its stone walls and grazing sheep was gone. In its place stretched fields of wildflowers in colors too subtle to name, glowing faintly even without sunlight. Towering birch trees shimmered with silver leaves, and in the distance, small candle-like lights floated just above the ground, unanchored, flickering, with what looked like silent whispers. Ron squinted. Have we ever taken this route before? Hermione frowned slightly. No, we shouldn't be this far off track. This doesn't feel like any part of Scotland. Before they could say more, the train began to slow, not with the usual screech of brakes, but with a calm, effortless glide. The sound of the wheels dimmed until there was only the faintest hum, like a forgotten tune being remembered. The train eased to a stop, and outside there was a station, but not like King's Cross, nor like Hogsmeade. This one was quiet, ancient perhaps, but untouched by time. The platform was short, built of smooth ivory-colored stone, and small ivy vines wrapped gently around its edge.
No signs, no timetables.
only one word carved into a weathered wooden post near the center, Evershade. Hermione's brows rose. I've never heard of this station before.
Have you?
Ron shook his head slowly. Not in any book.
And I've read at least 2. He grinned, attempting humor, but even he sounded awed. Harry stepped toward the door.
Should we look? There was no urgency, no fear. Just a soft, magnetic pull as though the station itself had called to them, not with force but with quiet invitation. The door creaked open without a spell, letting in a breeze that smelled of lavender and parchment. The 3 stepped down onto the platform, their footsteps making only the softest taps on the stone. No other passengers disembarked. The train stood quietly behind them, as if it too was waiting. The air here felt different, not colder, but lighter, as if it carried the weight of old stories and gentle dreams. Somewhere in the distance, a soft chime rang once, as though signaling the beginning of something unknown. Hermione wandered to the carved post and traced the letters with her fingertips.
Evershade.
It's not in any ministry record I've ever studied.
But it feels old. Magic this subtle doesn't just appear overnight. Ron looked toward the far end of the platform where an arched gate stood.
Made not of iron, but of woven tree branches, still living in green, forming a perfect oval. Beyond it, faint outlines of buildings could be seen, tall and slender, with curved roofs and glowing windows that flickered like fireflies. Harry took a breath. This place isn't hidden.
It's waiting, Hermione turned to him.
You mean?
Like it's meant to be found?
But only at the right time? He nodded slowly. Or by the right people. There was no sign of danger. No curses, no wards. Just a deep quiet, like an unread book resting on a shelf, full of secrets, but patient. They didn't speak for a while, just stood there, listening to the soft wind, the chirping of unseen birds, and the hush of possibility. Eventually, Ron broke the silence. So, are we going in? Harry looked to Hermione. She gave a small nod, her curiosity too strong to ignore, but her expression remained calm, soothed by the strangeness rather than startled. Together, they walked beneath the woven gate. As they passed through, the sounds shifted again, no longer just wind and birds, but whispers. Not frightening ones, but like pages turning in an endless library. Words that had been spoken long ago or never at all. A chorus of stories not yet told. The path ahead was cobblestone, and soft lanterns lit their way. The buildings around them stood still and glowing, some round like beehives, others tall like watchtowers, all crafted from materials that seemed both natural and enchanted. Glass that shimmered like dew.
Wood that hummed with quiet magic. At the center of the village was a large, circular building.
Its roof, domed with stained glass, depicting scenes that shifted gently as they walked. Flying book.
Open doorways, candlelit corridors, and a symbol none of them recognized. A key with wings.
Surrounded by stars, Harry whispered, I think this
is what we were meant to find, Hermione's eyes gleamed.
It's a memory. A place born from ancient magic, perhaps even older than Hogwarts. Preserved in time, hidden until called forth, Ron's voice was barely audible.
And now,
we're here. The trio stood before the great wooden door of the domed structure, sensing it was the heart of this hidden world. A world that wasn't dark or threatening, but mysterious in a way that made you breathe deeper, look slower, and feel gently stirred, like rediscovering an old lullaby from childhood. Without speaking further, they reached forward. The door, as if expecting them, began to open with a long, quiet creak. A soft golden light spilled out, and what lay inside? They would discover soon, but for now, they simply stood in the threshold of wonder, warmed by the thought that sometimes the most magical journeys begin when you've stopped looking for them. As the large door creaked open, the golden light that spilled out bathed their faces in a soft, flickering warmth. It wasn't a harsh light like electric bulbs or the stark gleam of spellfire, but something more like the glow of 1,000 candles, gentle, welcoming, alive. It made their shadows stretch behind them like wisps of memory. Harry, Hermione and Ron stepped inside, their footsteps muffled by a thick, moss-colored carpet that seemed to silence even their thoughts. The chamber within was round and domed, like the outside had promised, but far larger than it appeared. The ceiling soared above them, a stained glass dome shimmering with soft movement. It showed a slowly shifting night sky, speckled with stars that gently blinked in time with the lanterns on the walls. They weren't real stars, and yet they twinkled with such peace one could almost hear them breathing. The room was empty of people, but not of presence. A large, circular table stood in the center, carved of wood so smooth it looked like still water. Upon it lay an open book, not dusty nor forgotten, but fresh and glowing faintly at the edges, as though it had just been written or had simply always existed. Hermione approached first. Her fingers hovered above the pages, reverent but curious.
It's in no language I've seen before.
Yet somehow I feel like I know what it's saying. Harry and Ron came closer. The pages were filled with winding, spiraling lines, symbols that moved like flowing script, but shimmered like ink drawn from moonlight. As they looked closer, words began to shape themselves, not in their minds, not in whispers, but in impressions. The book didn't speak, not exactly. It shared memories, dreams, wishes once whispered in empty corridors,
Laughter from forgotten students.
sorrows locked away in hidden rooms. Hope carried on midnight walks across the astronomy tower. All of it danced on the pages, gently inviting, never forcing. Hermione gasped softly.
It's a memory ledger.
A place that stores the emotions and moments of the magical world. Ron squinted. Like a diary for the entire wizarding history. More than that, Harry said, eyes wide. It's like the world itself remembers.
And this book, this room.
It's where it all rests. They stood silently for a while, watching as the pages turned themselves. One page paused. A new image began to shimmer into view. Not words, but a scene. The three of them saw themselves, just moments ago, stepping onto the platform of Evershade. But behind them, something else appeared.
A fourth figure.
Cloaked, indistinct, and faintly glowing as if wrapped in mist. Ron's eyes narrowed. What is that? Harry's breath caught. They weren't there.
Not when we got off the train.
Hermione whispered, but the book says they were. The image faded gently. Just then the air shifted, not colder but charged, like the tingling in your fingertips before you cast a spell. They turned slowly. The walls of the room, once solid stone, had begun to
shimmer, not disappear, but ripple.
And behind them, as if the building were shedding its skin, another world peeked through. A train station, but not the one they had arrived in. This one was older, darker, with black iron arches and tall lamps that flickered with bluish flame. Benches of carved bone, a clock whose hands ticked backward.
Everything draped in silence.
And then, in the distance, the faint whistle of a train, not coming, but leaving. Hermione clutched her chest. I think we're seeing
another station.
One that no longer exists, Ron blinked. Or maybe one that hasn't come yet. The two scenes, the warm glow of Evershade and the shadowy station beneath, coexisted now. Overlapping like pages in a book halfway turned. They weren't frightened. Strangely, there was peace in the juxtaposition. A reminder that even in magic, time could fold like soft linen. The book on the table turned another page. This one showed a map, not of the wizarding world they knew, but of pathways unseen. Tiny glowing lines ran from Platform 9, 3, 4, to stations never mentioned in any travel log. Some led into mountains.
Others to lakes.
One line curved downward beneath the ground, and ended at a single glowing dot, pulsing gently. Hermione pointed.
That's here, Evershade. Ron noticed another line. And that one, it moves. Indeed, one of the glowing paths was slowly shifting on its own, almost like a snake or a thread being sewn through time.
It pulsed gently and began to curve toward them. Harry murmured, "Something's coming." But there was no fear in his voice, just wonder. And then, from the far end of the room, another door appeared, one that hadn't been there before. It faded into view slowly, wrapped in ivy and whispers. Etched on the front in that same luminous script were the words, "Station of Echoes." They approached carefully. Hermione ran her hand over the door. "I think it leads somewhere else."
Maybe to one of the other hidden stations, Ron hesitated.
"I'm not even sure how we got to this one."
What if we get stuck?
Harry looked at them both.
But what if it only opens now to us? What if it's part of the story, this moment?
There was a long pause. The book behind them fluttered softly as if encouraging them forward. With a nod, they opened the door. It didn't swing or creak. It simply gave way, like air parting for a dream. On the other side was a corridor, not stone, not wood, but something softer, like velvet made of light. Footsteps made no sound here. The walls glimmered with soft blues and purples, and somewhere distant, chimes rang, slow and steady, like the rhythm of a sleeping heartbeat. As they walked, small images danced along the walls, memories again, but not theirs.
Strangers in old robes stepping onto hidden platforms.
Children whispering to enchanted trains. Wizards waving goodbye to stations that faded after one visit, never to appear again. And at the very end of the corridor, another train. It was small, silver, and humming softly like a lullaby. No conductor, no sign. Just a single carriage, doors wide open, waiting. Hermione stepped closer.
It's inviting us, Ron chuckled nervously. I hope it's not a one-way ride, Harry smiled gently.
If it is, then maybe we're meant to take it. They climbed aboard. Inside, the carriage was unlike anything they'd seen. Walls of shimmering fabric, seats that felt like clouds, windows that showed not the outside world, but thoughts, memories they'd forgotten, smiles from childhood, hugs from lost friends.
Moments of stillness, and then the door closed. There was no jolt, no sound, just motion, soft, peaceful. The train began to move, not on tracks,
but through light itself. No one spoke. They simply watched. And somewhere in the distance, they could hear the whisper of a voice. Not loud, not commanding, just kind. Some stations appear not when they are needed, but when they are remembered. And as the train glided forward through memory and time, Harry, Ron, and Hermione sat side by side, quiet, comforted, and full of wonder. The silver train continued to glide through a world that didn't quite feel like any place they had known.
It wasn't rushing. It didn't sway.
It simply moved, like a dream that you don't realize you've entered until you're too deep to leave. Inside the carriage, time seemed to loosen its grip. There was no sense of urgency, no ticking clock, only the gentle rhythm of light passing by the windows in long, graceful waves. Ron leaned back in his cloud-soft seat, his fingers laced behind his head. "You know," he said, in a hushed voice, "this might be the first train I've been on where I'm not stuffing my face with snacks or looking for the trolley witch." Hermione smiled gently, her gaze fixed on the window where soft images shimmered across the glass.
"It's not that kind of journey," she whispered. Harry didn't speak.
He was watching too, but not the windows. His eyes were on a panel near the front of the carriage, a smooth wooden frame where something was beginning to appear. Slowly, as if ink were being poured from air, words emerged. "To find what's been forgotten, one must walk where silence sings. The three of them exchanged quiet glances. "What do you think it means?" Ron asked. Hermione sat up straighter, the calm curiosity in her eyes flickering with thought.
Maybe it means we're not passengers anymore.
Maybe this part of the journey isn't about where the train goes. It's about what we do next. As if in answer, the train began to slow, not with a screech or jolt, but with a smooth deceleration that felt like a gentle hand easing them toward stillness. The doors opened with a soft sigh. Outside was
Mist. A silver-grey mist so thick and soft it looked like clouds had come down to the ground to rest.
It wasn't cold and it wasn't damp. It simply hovered, waiting. A narrow path was visible, just barely. Stones worn smooth by time led forward into the fog.
Not straight, not winding, just
Patiently meandering like it knew it had no need to rush. The three stepped off together. The air here was impossibly quiet. Not silent in the way of emptiness, but in the way of deep libraries or midnight forests, where sound exists but chooses not to interrupt. With each step,
more of the world emerged. Tall arches appeared through the mist. Train platforms.
maybe, but twisted by time and overgrown with ivy and soft silver moss. Some arches were broken. Others leaned gently to one side, but all of them hummed faintly, like echoes of songs once sung. Hermione touched one.
They feel like memories. Stations that were once real, Harry murmured.
But now,
Only remembered, Ron turned slowly. So,
is this a graveyard for magical platforms,
or maybe a garden, Hermione said softly.
where the forgotten things still grow?
Even if no one visits. Further along the path they found benches carved of stone.
Each with names etched in flowing script. Thistleline, Moonlight Rest, Glimmer Turn, Station of Second Chances. The last one made them all pause. Station of Second Chances, Ron repeated under his breath. As if the words themselves opened a door, a new path revealed itself. A soft ripple through the mist, like a veil being lifted. They followed. It led them to a clearing. There, nestled between two crumbling stone pillars, sat a single lamp post, tall, curved, and glowing with a soft golden orb that pulsed like a heartbeat. Beneath it stood a wooden bench, and behind the bench, a sign etched into the earth, "Sit."
And remember. They looked at one another, then sat, Harry in the middle.
Ron and Hermione at his sides. At first, nothing happened. And then, the mist stirred, not with wind, not with movement, but with memory. A soft voice, Harry's mother's laugh, barely audible, like a melody in another room. The scent of treacle tart, the sound of Ron's brothers laughing on a summer evening at the Burrow, the feel of Crookshanks curling on Hermione's lap in the Gryffindor common room. Each of them closed their eyes. They didn't fall asleep. They didn't drift. They simply remembered, and the station remembered with them. Around them, the arches glowed faintly. The mist shimmered with gentle colors, peach, lavender, moonlight blue. Scenes from long ago flickered like reflections on still water. Ron opened his eyes and whispered, "This place. It collects not just stations, but moments." Harry nodded slowly.
It's a railway of memories. Hermione placed a hand on the bench.
It's what connects our world, not just through magic, but through all the journeys we take, the choices we make, the people we travel with. A small chime rang out through the mist, clear, soft, the kind of sound that doesn't startle you, but gently reminds you that something has changed. From the far end of the clearing, a figure appeared. Not threatening, not clear, a silhouette in the fog, tall, wearing robes that swayed like ripples in still water.
No face could be seen.
Just presence, calm, watching. Harry stood slowly. The figure didn't move, but a voice, quiet and calm, echoed inside their minds. Not harsh or loud, just
Ancient. You are not the first to walk this way, nor shall you be the last.
but only those who come with hearts open to remembering may find what others forget. Hermione stepped forward gently.
Is this place meant to be known?
The figure's form shimmered slightly. It is meant to be felt, known not in books nor in stories, but in stillness, in walking where others once stood, in honoring what time no longer holds, Ron swallowed. And what are we meant to do here? The figure turned, pointing toward a new arch that hadn't been there before, taller than the others, framed with trailing white vines that shimmered with soft silver blossoms. Step through, bring no fear.
Only wonder, and with that the figure faded. No gust, no vanish, just
A return to quiet. They stood before the new archway now. It shimmered slightly, as if waiting for them to be ready, not just with their feet, but with their thoughts. Hermione reached for Harry and Ron's hands. Together, they stepped through. The world beyond was not grand, was not filled with spells or ancient relics. It was a simple station platform, wooden, warm, lit by golden lamps that never flickered. But it was alive with every journey ever, taken by every wizard, witch, and creature who had once needed hope. They stood there, breathing it in, and in that moment, they understood. Not all magic is in spells. Some of it lives in places that whisper. Some of it waits in memories, and some of it, like this hidden station, only appears when the world is quiet enough to hear it. The hidden station was unlike any they had ever seen before. Not because of its size or splendor, it was small, almost humble, but because of the way it felt. The wooden floor beneath their feet held the softness of time-worn stories. The lamps overhead cast a gentle glow, like morning light through fogged glass. The air was still and sweet, faintly carrying the scent of aged parchment and spring blossoms. There were no trains waiting at the platform,
no schedule boards.
no clocks ticking away time, just the three of them, Harry, Hermione, and Ron, and the hush of something timeless. They wandered together in quiet. To their right, an old ticket booth stood empty, its window clouded by a thin film of dust. Yet, etched into the wood was something peculiar. Instead of prices or destinations, the list read, a fare for courage, a fare for letting go, a fare for returning, a fare for wonder. Hermione paused, tracing the carvings with her finger.
It's not about places, she said softly. It's about why we travel. Ron tilted his head.
So, you pay with your feelings? Harry smiled faintly. Maybe just your readiness. Beyond the booth, a series of tall glass cabinets lined the wall. Inside, no tickets or maps, just small objects suspended in still air. A quill with a single silver feather, a seashell that shimmered like moonlight, a threadbare scarf embroidered with initials too faint to read. Each one pulsed softly when they passed, as if recognizing something within the observer. Hermione stepped closer to the quill.
The memories, she whispered.
Pieces left behind, maybe moments of choosing. Ron pointed to a small, rounded stone that sat perfectly centered in its own cabinet.
I had one like that in my pocket during our first year. On the way to Hogwarts, Harry looked at the scarf. And that,
he murmured. Looks a bit like the one Neville used to wear. Do you think these are
ours? Ron asked, voice hushed. Hermione shook her head slowly.
Not just ours. Everyone who ever stepped beyond the veil of the ordinary. They moved on at the far end of the station, past a quiet waiting bench and a lamp flickering like a sleepy candle, stood three arched doorways. Each was marked with a small phrase above the threshold. Return to the known, follow the whisper, rest in the memory. The choices were clear but not easy. Hermione read the words aloud, then turned to the others. It feels like they're offering us paths. Ron looked skeptical. What if they're traps? But Harry shook his head gently. No, this place hasn't tricked us once. It only shows us what we're ready to see. Hermione considered. Return to the known. That must lead back. To platform 934, to the familiar. Follow the whisper, Ron said. Probably takes us deeper. Wherever this place is, more of it. And rest in the memory, Harry added, might mean staying here, in the quiet, forever. Silence settled between them, not heavy or fearful, but thoughtful. It was a rare kind of silence, the kind you only hear when you're being given time to choose. I think, Hermione began, then paused. I think we each feel something different here. Harry nodded. It's not about choosing the same door, it's about choosing the door that feels right to us. They sat on the bench for a while longer, allowing their thoughts to drift. Ron was the first to stand. I want to follow the whisper, he said.
I don't know why, but something about it feels like a story I haven't finished reading. Hermione stood next. And I think I need to return, not because I want to forget, but because I want to carry what I've seen back with me.
Harry looked at both doors, then turned to the third. And I'll stay for a while, just to remember, just to listen. They didn't say goodbye, they didn't need to. Each of them passed through their chosen doorway, the arches glowing faintly as they moved, like pages of a book turning softly in the wind. Ron stepped into a corridor filled with gentle echoes, distant laughter, old spells, the quiet sound of his mother's voice calling him home. He smiled. Somewhere ahead, he would find a forgotten place where magic still lingered, waiting for a heart curious enough to find it. Hermione found herself stepping back onto platform 934, but it was empty and peaceful. The bustle of the world hadn't returned yet. She touched the bricks, looked toward the wall where the hidden passage would appear, and knew she would carry the story of the hidden station in her heart forever. And Harry remained. He wandered the quiet platform once more, running his fingers along the smooth grain of the wooden bench, breathing in the soft light. In that stillness, he saw things more clearly than he ever had. Not just memories, but meanings. Not just feelings, but understandings. This place hadn't asked anything of them. It had simply shown them, and in doing so it had reminded them what it meant to walk the path between the magical and the forgotten. Harry remained in the station, letting the soft hum of silence wrap around him like an old cloak. The glowing lanterns above gave no hint of time passing, no change in brightness, no shift in hue, only a steady golden warmth that held the moment in place. He sat again on the long wooden bench, the grain of the seat familiar now beneath his fingers. This wasn't a station meant for trains, not anymore. It was something older, something kinder. And as he sat, something curious began to happen. A soft shimmer appeared along the far wall, just beside the line of glass cabinets.
Not dramatic, not urgent.
Just a faint flicker, as if the air itself had remembered something and wanted to show it. Harry rose slowly, drawn by the glow. There, now gently glowing, was a new object inside a once empty glass cabinet.
A single key, it was simple.
Brass, slightly bent at the end, its surface worn smooth by use, but attached to it by a thin, curling thread was a tiny scroll of parchment. He leaned in and read the words. This unlocks nothing but the memory of your first question. His brow furrowed faintly, but his heart felt calm, as if this was the answer he had been waiting for, even if he hadn't known the question yet. He took the key, and as his fingers closed around it, the station changed, not in appearance, but in atmosphere. A sound drifted through the air, distant yet familiar, the chug-chug of a train,
Not approaching, not leaving.
just being. He turned toward the center of the station, and now, impossibly, the empty tracks had a faint shimmer above them, like heat rising on a summer's day. Within that shimmer, glimpses of every train he'd ever taken blurred together. The very first ride to Hogwarts, the night return under stars, the hushed journey back after the Battle of Hogwarts. But then, a new sound, a voice, very small, like the whisper of a leaf brushing past your ear. Why did you choose magic? Harry blinked. He looked around, but the station remained still. The question wasn't from someone else. It was from within him, a memory, a forgotten wonder. He closed his eyes and breathed in slowly. Because it meant something more, he whispered aloud. Because the world was full of shadows and scars, and magic offered hope.
A different kind of light.
And the station heard him. A soft pulse radiated outward, gentle like a heartbeat, like an answer being acknowledged. The lanterns above flickered, not dimming, but brightening, just a touch, enough to show that they understood. He walked slowly past the benches, past the cabinets, and the silent ticket booth, until he reached the very first place he had stepped into upon arrival, the center of the platform, the heart of it all, and from the ceiling above, a faint beam of silver light descended. Within it, images swirled softly, memories, dreams, quiet scenes from long ago, Ron's laughter echoing in the Gryffindor common room, Hermione's tired eyes glowing with discovery in the library at midnight, Hagrid holding a pink umbrella beneath the rain. The first time Harry saw Hogwarts glowing golden in the distance, and then scenes he had never seen before, young witches standing on this very platform, long before his time.
A boy in Ravenclaw robes placing his hand on the same cabinet of memories.
A girl humming to herself as she carved those curious fares into the booth. Generations of quiet souls who had wandered into this place not to be found, but to remember why they began. The station was not a location. It was a reminder. A gentle place between destinations where the heart could pause and listen. A whisper of the truth hidden beneath the rush of everyday life, that the journey was never just about where you were going, but who you were becoming. Harry stepped into the beam of light. The station pulsed once more, soft and warm, and for a brief, shimmering moment, he felt not like Harry Potter, the boy who lived, but simply Harry, a boy with a question.
A heart full of longing.
A need to believe that wonder still existed in the quiet corners of the world. The light slowly faded. The shimmer on the tracks dimmed, and the station, as quietly as it had revealed itself, began to fold back into its original hush. Harry turned, and waiting just behind him, silent, patient, was the same wooden bench. He sat again, the key still in his hand, and now he understood. The key had never unlocked a door. It had unlocked himself, a place, hidden after platform 934, only seen once, not because it couldn't appear again, but because it only showed itself when your soul was ready to listen, and he had listened. With the gentlest of smiles, Harry closed his eyes. The lamp above him swayed once, just enough to mimic the sway of a train car. And though the station had no engine, no tracks, no conductor, Harry knew he was already on his way home, not to a place, but to a feeling. The quiet comfort of wonder remembered. The quiet held steady around Harry like the comforting folds of an old cloak, soft and familiar. The lanterns overhead glowed steadily, their golden light now resembling the gentle flicker of candlelight rather than the glow of station lamps. It no longer felt like he was waiting for a train. He wasn't going anywhere really. He had already arrived. With the key resting in his palm, Harry leaned back on the wooden bench once more. He let his thoughts slow like autumn leaves drifting down through still air. Everything here was unhurried, as though time had been set aside to allow peace its proper space. He looked out over the platform. The shimmer on the tracks had faded entirely now, as if the hidden images had returned to their slumber. Not lost, but quietly folded away until another soul might need to see them again. The air no longer pulsed with magic, but hummed with the soft rhythm of contentment. Harry smiled faintly. He knew now what this place was. Not a destination, not even a passageway. It was a pause, a breath, a moment gifted to those who had carried too much for too long. And it had found him not because he had searched, but because he had needed to remember. He rose slowly, the old bench creaking beneath him. He walked along the platform's edge once more, not looking for anything this time, just feeling the quiet settle deeper into his chest. Somewhere near the back wall, he found a carved panel he hadn't noticed before. It bore an engraving of a sleeping phoenix, its wings curled inward, a soft flame flickering at its heart. Beneath it, written in neat curling script, were the words, "You do not always need to fight the dark to find the light. Sometimes you only need to rest in it." Harry traced the carving with a finger, then let his hand fall to his side. His footsteps were slow as he made his way back to where it had all begun, the shadowed archway where he had first stepped into this hidden world. The warm glow of the lanterns followed him, as if reluctant to let him go. He paused once more. Looking back over the platform, it felt like he was leaving a dream, and perhaps in some way he was. He stepped through the archway, and the moment he crossed the threshold, the gentle sounds of the world returned, the hum of the Hogwarts Express engine far in the distance, the quiet shuffle of student footsteps echoing faintly in King's Cross, the soft, rhythmic ticking of a pocket watch in someone's coat. Harry stood on the other side of the wall once more, alone but entirely at peace. He looked over his shoulder. Nothing was there now but smooth stone. The hidden railway station was gone, but something inside him had shifted, a sense of grounding, a quiet truth remembered. He tucked the small brass key into his coat pocket, not as a tool, but as a token, a memory, a reminder that not all magic needs to be loud or grand. Some of it waits in the hush between questions. He stepped back toward the main platform. The world outside still moved quickly, bustling with voices and echoes and energy. But Harry walked slowly, as if he knew a secret the rest of the world had forgotten. And perhaps in that moment, he did. And so, my dear sleep fellow, if ever you find yourself lost in the noise of the world, if the days feel too heavy or the nights too long, remember, even in the heart of the busiest train station, in the rush of life's constant motion, there may be a quiet place waiting for you, a place hidden not by distance, but by stillness. Harry had not gone in search of the hidden station. It had found him gently when he needed it most, and just like that warm bench beneath the lantern glow, just like the shimmer on those ancient tracks, there are soft, unseen corners of the world that appear only when our hearts are quiet enough to see them. Magic, you see, doesn't always come with sparks or spells. Sometimes it hums like a lullaby in forgotten stone, whispers through a hallway no one else remembers, or rests peacefully beneath the ticking of an old station clock. If you listen closely, perhaps you'll hear it too, in the hush of your room right now, in the stillness behind your breath, in the soft rhythm of your dreams waiting to bloom. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need a ticket or a wand.
All you need
is rest. Let your thoughts drift gently now like a train slowly pulling out of the station, its lanterns glowing softly in the night. You are safe. You are home. And somewhere, in a quiet, magical corner of the world, a light still flickers for you. Warm, golden, and patient. Good night, dear one.
And may you always find your way
Back to the magic.